I asked 50 Cent if Tupac really died. I expected a laugh, maybe a conspiracy theory. What I got instead was 5 hours of the most disturbing confession I have ever heard. He told me about 7 packages, 7 vials of blood, 7 names chosen before Tupac even got shot. He told me about a deal that was made, an exchange that required 7 deaths for 1 life. And then he showed me proof, physical proof, that this thing is real. What 50 Cent told me that night does not just haunt me. It made me realize I might be part of it now. And after you hear this, you might be too. It was November 2019. A private album release party in Los Angeles. The kind where nobody checks their phones because everyone who matters is already in the room. I was there covering the event, doing what I always do, floating between conversations, collecting stories that will never make it to print. The music was loud, the drinks were flowing. And then I saw him, 50 Cent, standing alone on a balcony, looking out at the city like he was searching for something in the distance. I am not the type to approach celebrities, but something about the way he stood there, isolated despite being surrounded by hundreds of people, made me walk over. We talked about nothing for a while. The usual industry gossip. Who was beefing with who? Which producers were falling off? Then, because I am an idiot who cannot leave well enough alone, I asked the question everyone asks. I asked him if Tupac was really dead. The second those words left my mouth, his entire face changed. The relaxed smile vanished. His jaw tightened. He turned to look at me with eyes that were not angry, but afraid. He said nothing for almost 30 seconds, just stared at me like he was deciding whether I was ready for what he wanted to say. Then he leaned in close, so close I could smell the cognac on his breath. And he whispered, "You really want to know? Because once I tell you, you will carry it too." I nodded. I thought he was about to tell me Tupac was alive in Cuba, or some recycled conspiracy theory I had heard 1,000 times before. Instead, he grabbed my arm, pulled me inside to an empty back room, locked the door, and said 6 words that made my blood turn cold. Tupac told me about the deal. He sat down on a leather couch and put his head in his hands. For a moment, I thought he was going to cry. Then he started talking. He told me that in August of 1996, 3 weeks before Tupac was shot in Las Vegas, they were both at a recording studio in Los Angeles. It was late, maybe 3 in the morning. Most people had left. Tupac was acting strange that night, paranoid. He kept checking the windows, asking who was outside, looking over his shoulder like someone was following him. 50 said he thought Tupac was just high. But then Tupac pulled him into a separate room, closed the door, and told him something that sounded completely insane. He said that someone had approached him with a deal. Not a record deal, not a business deal, something else, something darker. Tupac said the exact words were, 7 for 1. 7 take your place. You get to live. 50 thought it was a metaphor. He thought Tupac was talking about the rap game, about sacrifice, about legacy. But Tupac grabbed him by the shoulders and said, "No, I mean it literally. 7 people will die so I do not have to. 7 packages have already been prepared. 7 names have already been chosen." They showed me the list. 50 asked him who was on the list. Tupac would not say. He just shook his head and said, "It does not matter." I told them no. I told them I would not do it. Then Tupac reached into his jacket and pulled out a small glass vial. Inside was blood. Dark. Thick. Almost black. He held it up to the light and said, "This is mine. They took it from me 2 weeks ago. They made 7 of these. When the person receives it, the clock starts. 7 days. Then the exchange happens. 50 told me he laughed it off. He thought Tupac was losing his mind, maybe getting too deep into some spiritual nonsense or voodoo rituals. They finished the session. Tupac left. 50 never saw him alive again. 3 weeks later, September 7th, 1996, Tupac was shot 4 times in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas. He died 6 days later in the hospital. 50 said he forgot about that conversation. He buried it. Chalked it up to Tupac being paranoid in his final days, maybe predicting his own death in some cryptic way. He moved on, built his career, got shot himself in 2000 and survived. Life kept going. But then, 6 months after Tupac died, something happened that made 50 remember every single word of that conversation. Biggie received a package, but what was inside that package was not a threat. It was a countdown. March 1997. The notorious B.I.G., one of the greatest rappers to ever touch a microphone, was in Los Angeles for the Soul Train Music Awards. He was staying at the Peterson Automotive Museum area, trying to keep a low profile despite the East Coast-West Coast tension that had turned the rap world into a war zone. 4 days before he was murdered, a package arrived at his hotel. No return address, no note on the outside, just a small wooden box wrapped in brown paper. Biggie opened it in his hotel room with Lil Cease and a few other members of Junior MAFIA present. Inside the box was a glass vial, similar to the one Tupac had shown 50 Cent months earlier. It contained dried blood, so dark it looked almost black. Underneath the vial was a folded piece of paper, yellowed and aged like it had been sitting in someone's drawer for years. The paper had only 2 words written on it in handwriting that none of them recognized. 6 days. Biggie thought it was a threat. He thought someone from the West Coast was sending him a message, letting him know his time was running out. He showed it to his security team. They told him to take it seriously, to stay inside, to cancel appearances. But the Soul Train Awards were too big to miss. He had to be seen. He had to show he was not afraid. So he went. He performed. He smiled for cameras. And on March 9th, 1997, 6 days after the package arrived, he was shot 4 times in a drive-by shooting. He died within an hour. 50 Cent told me he did not connect it immediately. He heard about Biggie's death like everyone else did. On the news, in shocked phone calls from friends, in the eulogies that played on every radio station for weeks. It was not until a year later, at a studio session in New York, that he learned about the package. Lil Cease told him. They were drinking, reminiscing about Biggie, and Cease mentioned the box. He described the vial, the dried blood, the note that said 6 days. That is when 50 remembered what Tupac had told him. 7 packages, 7 names, 7 deaths in exchange for 1 life. He felt his stomach drop. He asked Cease if he still had the package. Cease said no. He said he threw it away after Biggie died because it freaked him out too much to keep it. 50 did not push further. He did not want to sound crazy. But in his mind, he started counting. Tupac was dead. Now Biggie was dead. That was 2. For a while, 50 tried to convince himself it was just a coincidence. 2 rappers killed in the same war, both victims of the same violence that had been brewing for years. There was no curse, no deal, no exchange. Tupac had been paranoid and superstitious, and 50 had let that paranoia infect his own mind. He pushed the thought away, focused on his own career, survived his own shooting in 2000 when he was hit 9 times outside his grandmother's house in Queens. He lived, he healed, he became one of the biggest names in hip-hop. But then, in February 1999, Big L was shot 9 times in his hometown of Harlem. And before he died, he had received a package too. 50 did not find out about Big L's package until years later. It came up in a conversation with one of Big L's childhood friends, someone who had been there in the weeks before the murder. The friend mentioned that Big L had gotten something weird in the mail, a wooden box, a vial of what looked like dried blood. Big L had laughed about it, showed it to a few people, made jokes about it being Tupac's blood like it was some kind of twisted fan mail. He kept it on his bookshelf like a morbid trophy. 2 weeks later, he was shot in the face and killed during a drive-by in his own neighborhood. The case was never solved. The motive was never clear, and the wooden box disappeared, likely thrown away by family members cleaning out his apartment. But the friend remembered it. He remembered the vial. He remembered Big L joking about it the week before he died. When 50 heard this, he felt something break inside him. This was not a coincidence anymore. This was a pattern. Tupac had been telling the truth. Someone had made 7 packages. Someone had chosen 7 names, and those names were being checked off one by one. 3 down, 4 to go. But the 4th death would not come for another 3 years. And when it did, it would hit closer to home than 50 ever imagined. Jam Master Jay was not just a DJ. He was a legend. 1/3 of Run DMC, a pioneer who helped bring hip-hop into the mainstream when the world still thought rap was a passing trend. He was also a mentor, a father figure to young artists trying to make it out of Queens. And he was one of 50 Cent's closest friends. In the early 2000s, 50 was still grinding, still trying to get his career off the ground after surviving 9 gunshot wounds that should have killed him. Jam Master Jay gave him studio time, let him record, believed in him when most of the industry had written him off as too dangerous, too controversial, too damaged to ever make it. They spent hours together in the studio, talking about music, about life, about survival. It was during one of those late-night sessions in October 2002 that Jam Master Jay told 50 about the package. They were alone in the control room, taking a break between tracks, and Jay pulled a wooden box out of his bag. He set it on the mixing board and said, "Yo, I got some weird stuff in the mail last week. You ever seen anything like this?" 50 looked at the box and felt his chest tighten. He knew what it was before Jay even opened it. The same brown paper wrapping, the same aged wood, the same dimensions. Jay opened it slowly, like he was unwrapping a gift. Inside was the vial, dark, dried blood pressed against the glass. And underneath it, a piece of paper with words scrawled in that same unsettling handwriting. The exchange continues. 50 did not say anything at first. He just stared at the vial, feeling a cold weight settle in his gut. Jay laughed it off. He said it was probably some obsessed fan trying to be creepy. Maybe someone who knew about the Tupac and Biggie rumors and wanted to start their own legend. He said he was going to throw it away, that it was just dumb horror movie stuff. But 50 grabbed his arm and said, "Do not open that vial. Do not throw it away. Just keep it locked up somewhere." Jay looked at him confused, asked him why he was so serious. 50 wanted to tell him everything, wanted to explain the pattern, the deaths, the 7 names, the deal Tupac had described. but he could not get the words out. It sounded too insane. So instead, he just said, "Trust me." "Keep it locked up." Jay shrugged, put the box back in his bag, and they went back to recording. 3 weeks later, on October 30th, 2002, Jam Master Jay was shot in the head inside his own recording studio in Queens. The murder happened in front of multiple witnesses, but nobody talked. The case went cold. It remains officially unsolved to this day, though arrests were finally made years later. But 50 knows the truth. He knows what really killed Jay. It was not a robbery. It was not a dispute over money or drugs or beef. It was the package. After Jay's funeral, 50 went back to the studio where he died. He searched everywhere for the wooden box, tearing through drawers, checking closets, looking under equipment. He never found it. Someone had taken it. Or maybe it had disappeared on its own, its purpose fulfilled. Either way, it was gone. And so was Jay. That was the moment 50 realized he was not just witnessing a pattern anymore. He was part of it. He had been there for the conversation with Tupac. He had heard about Biggie's package. He had seen Big L's vial described to him. And now he had touched the box that killed his friend. He was connected to all of this in a way that felt deliberate, like he was being forced to watch every single death up close. 4 down, 3 to go. 50 started keeping a list after that. He wrote down every name, every date, every detail he could remember about the packages. He became obsessed with figuring out who else might be marked. He reached out to people in the industry, asking subtle questions about whether anyone had received strange packages, whether anyone had seen wooden boxes or vials of blood. Most people thought he was losing his mind. A few hung up on him, but some, a very small number, admitted they had heard rumors. Whispers about other rappers getting similar deliveries. Names that were still alive, but walking around with a countdown they did not even know had started. 50 could not save Jam Master Jay, but maybe, just maybe, he could warn whoever was next. He had no idea that the next package would not arrive for another 4 years. And when it did, the person who received it would change everything 50 thought he understood about the curse. Proof was not just Eminem's best friend. He was the soul of D12, the anchor that kept the group grounded when fame started tearing people apart. Deshaun Holton, known to the world as Proof, was the kind of person who made everyone around him feel safe. He had this energy, this loyalty that you could not fake. And in early 2006, that loyalty made him do something incredibly dangerous. He tried to break the curse. 50 Cent had known Proof for years, through the Detroit connection, through Eminem, through the endless studio sessions and tours that blurred together into one long brotherhood. They were not as close as 50 and Jay had been, but there was respect there. Mutual understanding. So when Proof called him in March of 2006, voice shaking in a way 50 had never heard before, he knew something was catastrophically wrong. Proof told him he had received a package 3 days earlier. Same wooden box, same brown paper wrapping, same vial of dried blood sitting inside like a death sentence preserved in glass. But this time, the note was different. It did not have a countdown. It did not say 6 days or 7 days. Instead, it had a single sentence written in that jagged, unsettling handwriting that looked like it had been carved rather than written. 5 have paid. 2 remain. Will you run or will you stand? Proof was terrified, but he was also angry. He told 50 that he had spent the last 3 days researching everything he could find about curses, about blood magic, about deals made with things that should not exist. He had talked to spiritual advisors, to priests, to a Haitian woman in Detroit who worked with voodoo and claimed she could see death following him like a shadow. And all of them told him the same thing. The only way to break a curse tied to blood is to destroy the blood before it destroys you. So Proof made a decision. He was going to burn the vial. He was going to take the box out to an empty field, douse it in gasoline, and light the whole thing on fire. He told 50 his plan, expecting support, expecting confirmation that this was the right move. But 50 felt a wave of pure dread wash over him. He told Proof not to do it. He begged him to just lock the box away, to hide it, to never touch it again. He said, what if destroying it makes it worse? What if that is exactly what it wants you to do? Proof laughed, but it was a hollow sound, brittle and desperate. He said he could not just sit around waiting to die. He said he had a daughter, a family, people who depended on him. He said if there was even a chance that burning the vial would break whatever chain connected him to Tupac's deal, he had to take it. 50 tried to argue, tried to convince him to wait, to think it through. But Proof had already made up his mind. The call ended with Proof saying he would update 50 after it was done. He said he would call him that night and tell him the box was ash, the curse was broken, and everything was going to be fine. 50 sat by his phone for hours, waiting. The call never came. April 11th, 2006. Proof was at a pool hall on 8 Mile Road in Detroit, the same streets he had rapped about his entire life. An argument broke out. Witnesses said it escalated fast, too fast, like something was pushing it toward violence. Proof pulled a gun. So did someone else. Shots were fired. Proof was hit in the head. He died almost instantly, collapsing on the floor of a place he had been to 1,000 times before, surrounded by people who knew his name but could not save his life. When 50 heard the news, he did not cry. He did not scream. He just sat in silence, staring at his phone, replaying that last conversation in his mind over and over again. Proof had tried to fight back. He had tried to break the curse, to take control of his own fate, and it had killed him faster than anyone else. Biggie got 6 days, Big L got 2 weeks, Jam Master Jay got 3 weeks. But Proof got 3 days after making the decision to destroy the vial. 50 became convinced that the curse was not passive. It was not just sitting there waiting for time to run out. It was intelligent. It was watching. And the moment you tried to resist it, the moment you tried to burn the blood or throw it away or break the chain, it accelerated. It took you faster. It made an example out of you. After Proof's funeral, 50 did something he had been avoiding for years. He hired a private investigator to track down every single detail about the other deaths. He wanted to know if anyone else had tried to fight back, if anyone else had attempted to destroy their package. The investigator came back with fragments, whispers, unconfirmed rumors. But one detail stood out. A friend of Big L claimed that the night before he died, Big L had tried to smash the vial against a wall. It did not break, the glass would not shatter, and the next day, he was shot 9 times. 5 down, 2 packages left, 2 names still walking around, still breathing, still waiting for the box to arrive. 50 did not know who they were, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. One of them was going to be him. What he did not know was that the 6th package had already been delivered. And the person who received it was someone the world would never suspect. Mac Miller was a generational talent, a white kid from Pittsburgh who fell in love with hip-hop so deeply that the culture embraced him back without hesitation. He was genuine. He was vulnerable. He wore his pain on his sleeve and turned it into music that made millions of people feel less alone. And in the summer of 2018, someone sent him a package that would kill him 3 weeks later. 50 Cent did not know Mac Miller personally. They had never worked together, never been in the same room as far as he could remember. But in the weeks after Mac's death in September 2018, 50 started getting messages from people in Mac's inner circle, producers he had worked with, friends who had been at his house in the days before he died. And all of them were saying the same thing. Mac had received something strange in the mail, something that freaked him out, but that he could not bring himself to throw away. One of Mac's closest friends agreed to meet 50 in person, off the record. No phones, no recordings. They met at a diner in Los Angeles at 2 a.m, the kind of place where nobody asks questions and nobody remembers faces. The friend looked like he had not slept in weeks. His hands were shaking as he stirred his coffee, and when he finally started talking, his voice was barely above a whisper. He said that 3 weeks before Mac died, a package showed up at his house in Studio City. Mac was not expecting anything. He brought it inside, set it on his kitchen counter, and opened it while he was on FaceTime with this friend. The friend watched him pull out a small wooden box, the same kind 50 had seen before, had heard described a dozen times. Mac opened the box on camera. Inside was the vial. Dark, dried blood pressed against the glass like a fossil. And underneath it, a note. Mac read the note out loud. It said, "The exchange continues. 6 have paid. 1 remains. You carry the sound forward." Mac did not understand what it meant. He thought it was some kind of twisted fan mail, maybe a reference to the Tupac samples he had used in his music, or the interviews where he had talked about how much Tupac's work had influenced him. He thought it was morbid but kind of interesting in a dark, artistic way. So he kept it. He put the vial on a shelf in his studio, right next to his vinyl collection and his old beat machines. He told his friend it was like having a piece of hip-hop history, even if it was creepy as hell. But then weird things started happening. Mac began having vivid nightmares about being shot. He would wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, clutching his chest like he could feel bullets tearing through him. He told people he kept seeing shadows in his house, figures standing in doorways that disappeared when he turned on the lights. His anxiety spiked. His depression got worse. He started using more, trying to numb whatever was crawling around inside his head. His friends noticed the change. They asked him what was going on, if something had happened, if he needed help. Mac brushed it off. He said he was just stressed about the album, about his breakup, about the usual demons that came with being alive and trying to create art out of pain. But the friend on FaceTime remembered the box. He remembered the vial. And he remembered Mac joking, just a few days before he died, that maybe the blood was cursed. Maybe Tupac was haunting him. Maybe he should have thrown it away. September 7th, 2018. 22 years to the day after Tupac was shot in Las Vegas. Mac Miller was found dead in his home from an apparent overdose. The toxicology report showed fentanyl-laced drugs in his system, the kind of contamination that killed people all over the country, the kind of thing that looked like a tragic accident. But 50 Cent knew better. He asked the friend what happened to the box. The friend said that when people were cleaning out Mac's house after his death, the box was gone. Nobody knew where it went. Some thought maybe Mac had thrown it away in his final days. Others thought someone took it as a keepsake. But it was not in the studio anymore. It was not on the shelf. It had vanished, just like all the others had after their purpose was complete. 6 down, 1 to go. 50 became obsessed with finding the 7th name. He knew the pattern now. He knew how the curse worked. It did not target random people. It targeted people connected to Tupac's legacy, people who carried his influence forward, people who kept his name alive in the culture. Biggie was his rival and his mirror. Big L was his peer. Jam Master Jay was his mentor's generation. Proof was Eminem's anchor. And Eminem had been compared to Tupac countless times. Mac Miller had sampled him, referenced him, idolized him. And 50? 50 had been there the night Tupac talked about the deal. He had been the witness, the one who knew the truth from the very beginning. He started preparing himself. He stopped taking meetings alone. He hired extra security. He checked his mail obsessively, screening every package, refusing to touch anything that looked even remotely suspicious. He told himself that if he stayed vigilant, if he stayed aware, maybe he could avoid whatever was coming for him. But then the 7th package did not arrive at his house. It arrived somewhere he never expected. And when he found out where it went, everything he thought he understood about the curse shattered completely. The 7th package did not go to 50 Cent. It went to someone who had never released a single album, someone who had never performed on stage or recorded a verse in a professional studio, someone who, by all logic of the curse, should never have been on the list. It went to a 17-year-old kid from Atlanta named Marcus, and the only reason 50 found out about it was because Marcus was brave enough to reach out to him directly. The message came through Instagram in January 2020. A long, rambling paragraph from an account 50 did not recognize, the kind of message he would normally ignore or let his team filter out. But something about the first sentence made him stop scrolling. It said, "I got a box with blood in it and a note that says your name." 50 felt his heart stop. He read the message 3 more times, each time hoping he had misunderstood. He had not. He messaged Marcus back immediately, told him to send pictures. Marcus did. The photos showed the same wooden box, the same aged brown paper wrapping, the same glass vial filled with dried black blood. But when 50 zoomed in on the note, his stomach turned. It did not say 7 have paid or the exchange is complete. Instead, it said, the witness must carry forward. Tell him the count begins again. 50 called Marcus that same night. The kid answered on the first ring, voice shaking so badly he could barely get words out. He said the package had arrived at his grandmother's house 4 days ago. He said he had no idea why it came to him. He was not famous. He was not a rapper. He had never even met Tupac or 50 Cent or anyone involved in the music industry beyond listening to their albums like every other kid his age. He was just a high school senior trying to survive Atlanta, trying to avoid the violence that took people from his neighborhood every single week. But then Marcus said something that made 50's blood run cold. He said his uncle had been Big L. Deshaun Dupree Holton was his middle name, given to him by his mother in honor of Proof, who had been a distant family friend before he died. And Mac Miller's swimming album had been playing in the delivery room the day he was born. Marcus was not connected to the curse by choice. He was connected to it by blood, by names, by coincidences that felt too deliberate to be accidents. 50 did not know what to tell him. Every instinct screamed at him to say throw it away or burn it or run. But he knew what happened to Proof when he tried to fight back. He knew the curse punished resistance. So instead, he told Marcus the truth. He told him everything. The deal Tupac had described, the 7 deaths, the pattern that had followed them all. And then he told Marcus the most terrifying part: you are not the 7th. You are the first of the next 7. Marcus went silent for almost a minute. When he finally spoke again, he sounded like a different person. Older, resigned. He said, "So, I am already dead." 50 wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that maybe the curse could be broken, that maybe there was a way out. But he could not lie. Not to this kid. Not when 6 people before him had already paid the price. For weeks, 50 stayed in contact with Marcus. They talked almost every day. Marcus told him about the nightmares that started the night the package arrived. Dreams where he was lying on the ground, bleeding out, watching people walk past him like he was invisible. Dreams where he opened the vial and the blood turned into smoke that filled his lungs until he could not breathe. He told 50 that he could feel something watching him now. Something that stood in the corner of his room at night. Something that did not have a face, but had eyes that burned into him until he had to turn on every light in the house just to feel safe. 50 tried everything he could think of. He sent Marcus money to hire security. He connected him with spiritual advisors, with priests, with anyone who claimed they could break curses or cleanse evil. Some of them came to Marcus's house, performed rituals, burned sage, prayed over the box. None of it worked. The vial stayed intact. The presence stayed in the corner of his room, and every night Marcus went to sleep not knowing if he would wake up. Months passed. Marcus turned 18. He graduated high school. He was still alive, still breathing, still waiting for the curse to claim him the way it had claimed the others. 50 started to hope that maybe this time was different. Maybe because Marcus was not famous, because he was not part of the industry, the curse could not touch him. Maybe the deal only worked on people who lived in the spotlight. But then 50 remembered what the note had said. The witness must carry forward. He was the witness. He had been there the night Tupac described the deal. He had watched every single death unfold. He had carried the story forward, kept it alive, let it infect his mind for over 2 decades, and now the curse was using him to pass it on to someone else. Marcus was not marked because of who he was. He was marked because 50 existed. And that is when 50 realized the most horrifying truth of all. The curse was not punishing 7 people for Tupac's deal. It was punishing everyone who knew about it. 50 Cent stopped talking to Marcus after that realization. He blocked his number, deleted the messages, tried to erase every trace of their conversations like that would somehow undo the damage. But it did not work. The guilt ate at him every single day. He had told Marcus the truth, thinking it would help him prepare, thinking knowledge was better than ignorance. Instead, he had made it worse. He had confirmed the curse was real, had given it power by believing in it, had turned a scared kid into a marked man just by speaking the words out loud. That is when 50 made the decision to tell someone else, to confess everything he had been carrying for over 20 years. He needed to pass the weight to someone who could handle it, someone who could investigate it, someone who could maybe find a way to break the chain before it claimed Marcus or anyone else. And that someone was me. The night 50 told me this story, November 2019, He was not just sharing information. He was performing a ritual. He was passing the curse forward the same way it had been passed to him. He told me that the moment he said the words out loud, the moment he made me believe it was real, I became part of the pattern. I became another witness, another person carrying the story forward, another link in a chain that stretched back to Tupac and forward into an endless cycle of death. I did not believe him at first. I thought he was telling me an elaborate ghost story, the kind of legend that gets passed around in the music industry late at night when people are drunk and vulnerable. But then he pulled out his phone and showed me pictures of the wooden box he had received just 3 months earlier, in August 2019. He had not told anyone about it. He had not posted it online or mentioned it in interviews. He had locked it in a vault in his house, too afraid to destroy it, too afraid to keep it close. The note inside his box said, "7 have been paid. The witness has carried forward. Now the witness must pay." 50 was not the first of the next 7 like Marcus. He was the final price of the original deal. The 7th name had always been him. From the very beginning, the moment Tupac told him about the exchange, 50 Cent was marked. He just did not know it yet. He told me he had been living with that box for 3 months, waiting for the symptoms to start, waiting for the nightmares, the paranoia, the presence in the corner of the room. But nothing happened. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. He was still alive, still healthy, still walking around like a man who had not been sentenced to death. And that is what terrified him most. Not that the curse was coming for him, but that it was taking its time. Playing with him, letting him suffer in the anticipation, in the not knowing, in the constant awareness that every breath could be his last. 50 told me that the curse feeds on fear. It feeds on belief. It feeds on people like him who know the truth and cannot stop thinking about it, cannot stop looking over their shoulders, cannot stop waiting for the inevitable. He said that is why he was telling me, because if he was going to be claimed by this thing, he needed someone else to know the full story. He needed someone to document it, to investigate it, to figure out if Tupac really made a deal, or if something else created this pattern and used Tupac's name as a mask. I asked him if he thought Tupac was still alive, if all of this was real. If 7 people really had died for 1 life, then Tupac should be out there somewhere. Hidden. Protected. Living under a new name in a place where nobody would recognize him. 50 looked at me with eyes that had gone completely hollow and said, "I hope he is not, because if he is alive, if this deal actually worked, then that means every single one of those deaths was his fault, and I do not know how you live with that." We sat in silence for a long time after that. The party outside had gotten louder. People were laughing, dancing, celebrating the release of an album that would be forgotten in 6 months. But inside that room, 50 Cent and I were trapped in a story that had been playing out for over 2 decades. A story that had claimed 6 lives already. A story that had marked a 17-year-old kid who did not deserve to be part of this. A story that now included me. Before he left, 50 handed me a piece of paper. He said it was the list of names. All 7 original deaths, all the details he had gathered over the years. He said if anything happened to him, if he died in a way that looked like an accident or an illness or just bad luck. I should publish the list. I should make sure people knew the pattern. I should make sure the story did not die with him. I took the paper. I folded it. I put it in my jacket pocket. And I did not look at it until I got home that night. When I finally unfolded it and read the names, I realized 50 Cent had lied to me about one thing. There were not 7 names on the list. There were 8. The 8th name on the list was mine. I do not know when 50 added it. I do not know if it was there the whole time or if he wrote it in front of me while I was not looking. But it was there, my full name, written in the same jagged handwriting that had been on every note inside every wooden box. 2 weeks after that conversation, a package arrived at my apartment. I have not opened it. I keep it locked in a drawer, wrapped in chains, surrounded by every protection symbol I could find. But I can feel it. I can feel it calling to me every night, whispering that the only way to end this is to open it, to see what is inside, to let the exchange take me the way it took all the others. And some nights, when the fear gets too heavy, I think about doing it. I think about finally knowing if any of this is real. But then I remember Marcus. I remember 50 Cent sitting in that room, hollow and haunted. And I realize the curse does not need me to open the box. It just needs me to believe. And I do. God help me. I do.